So they have released the new Risk of Rain 2 DLC, Seekers of the Storm, which already has been kinda polemic ever since its launch, because apparently Gearbox fucked up one of the only passionate and beloved games in the market by providing us less content than the previous DLC and bringing a lot of bugs to the base game, which is ridiculous, and I thought it was something possible. But once again, Gearbox is surprising us, right? And now everyone is pissed off with decent reasons, even because ever since Gear bought this amazing franchise, we already were afraid of what was gonna come. But today I don't really want to talk about the part of the DLC, even because I played very little to have a solid opinion about it. But I can for sure tell you two things. First, I've been playing this shit for 4 hours and it's like they added almost nothing new to the game. That I can point out. Like no enemies at all, just some different scenarios, and well, the items are kinda awful, to be honest. And the second thing is, what have they done to Chef? Chef, for those who don't know, was one of the characters present in the first Risk of Rain, and by far my favorite one. Why? Mostly because he was different. He had a peculiar set of skills that combined perfectly to the character build. Like his primary attack was one of the best primary at the game, which was a butter knife that would go and come back like a boomerang. His secondary attack released a blast of fire that pushed the enemies away. His third skill was a sprint that would soak enemies on the way with oil, and something interesting was that if he used his secondary on an oiled enemy, it would increase the damage of the blast. And his last skill was a buffer to the next skill used. And what else made Chef and every other character really enjoyable in Risk of Rain 1 was the fact that each one of them has a set of skills that would harmonize with the whole character proposition and not feel a little bit off, let's say it that way. Like look at Chef for example. He's a very fragile ranged character that in order to be good must keep constant distance from the enemies and have ways of punishing those who get closer. So his set of skills allowed him to greatly accomplish such an act. Like his primary was a way of punishing anything within his range of attack with a butter knife that goes and returns. And what makes it more powerful is the fact that unlike other survivors, the knife pierces the enemy and you can be constantly throwing just like a machine gun or well a basic attack. And that's a perfect feature for the game because most offensive items in Risk of Rain 1 and 2 scales to on-hit effects. Now his secondary is a blast that in my vision, although giving a burst damage, its main purpose is the use of it to keep the enemies away from Chef, since just like I said, Chef is very fragile and must keep his distance from the enemy, you know. And his third skill is another proof of it, a sprint that can make near enemies slower so that you'll be able to throw a lot of knives at him with the ability of finish them with the secondary since it's gonna enhance the damage of the secondary. And for the last skills, by being a buffer, it only complements the very basic skills of the survivor. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that above all things, Chef's playability is entirely based on his knives and the fact that he's a ranged character that needs to be constantly attacking and running away from the enemies while using his other skills to keep his distance from these enemies. And the developers, Hoppo Games, understood that perfectly. That's why they created such a perfect set of skills for Chef and every other survivor in Risk of Rain. Something that combines with the character proposition, you know. But now let's talk about Risk of Rain 2. And my real indignation with this version of Chef. Chef in this game is a complete joke and just feel like he was made in a way that Gearbox could say, oh, we're adding more content to the game. But in reality, all they did was they added a lazy character that simply doesn't feel like the original one, and worst, it has a poor set of skills that simply have no harmony with the character playstyle, which by the way is another problem for the game, cause it just seems like he has no playstyle, man. It's like they started making him with something in their mind but kept changing that shit, ended up with a soup of trash and drag. But I'm being kinda harsh by just throwing those words in the air, you know. Let me show you exactly why I think Chef has become the worst character in this fucking game. I'm gonna leave his primary for the end cause my fucking god, that just pissed me off so much and I can't start with that shit. Otherwise, I might explode in the middle of the explanation, okay? So, it started by his secondary. It's basically a flamethrower, but you need to be sniffing the enemy's ass in order to be effective. And that's already a problem, because remember what I said about Chef in Risk of Rain 1? He is supposed to be a ranged character that keeps his distances. So why in the hell would somebody put a fucking skill that is only effective when you're sticking your fucking nose into some enemy's ass, man? A chargeable sprint that runs over every enemy. And I'm gonna be honest, it's a good skill. It's actually a quite nice change from the original one. Not what I wanted, but decent. Now the problem is the chargeable part, because although becoming tankier when charging up, you're not fucking invincible. And in this game, being standing still, even if it is for 3 fucking seconds, means death most part of the times, you know what I'm saying? Now we have another shitty skill, the special, that release globs of oil dealing a lot of damage, while soaking the enemies. And why it's a shitty skill? Because it's pretty generic and lazy. You know what? The alternate version, yes, Chef, is way better than this shit, since it's basically the same from the first game. Like, in my opinion, Chef, instead of having one of his primordial skill as an alternate, they could have simply made the utility skill just like in the first fucking title. Like, while sprinting he starts to squirt oil everywhere, or I don't know, the roll leaves a trail of oil. Like, they could have been more creative in the shit, man. My fucking god. And now the last and worst skill of all, his primary. What can I say? They absolutely destroyed Chef by changing his primary. Like, whoever had the fucking idea of making his knife a click and click skill should honestly rest in the arms of the devil, cause I swear to god that shitty decision was able to spoil their beloved character into a level that just becomes unfucking playable, motherfucker. And the worst part is that it only has 3 charges with a ridiculous cooldown that just emphasize how idiots these motherfuckers developers are for having the fucking decision, man. Bro, I swear that playing the Chef mod feels way more comfortable than using this shit made by these shitty developers, man. It is unbelievable how they were able to mess a character that was already fucking established. Yumaro just needed to make his primary a normal shooting skill that goes and return, but you motherfuckers decided to take away from us the little simple mechanic that made all of us fucking happy, which was the main characteristic of Chef and the main reason of why we loved this character so much, you The decision of having to click twice in order to make a knife go and return is, for God's sake, one of the worst things I've ever seen in this fucking game. But heck, if they made him that way, he would be too OP, man. Listen to me, you fucker. What game do you think this is, huh? Some silly competitive game that needs constant balance to make it enjoyable? No, motherfucker, this is Risk of Rain 2. Who in the hell cares for balance in this fucking game? I just wanna be holding my fucking button while the words burn in my screen. There is no such a thing as balanced character in this shit, you motherfucker. My fucking shit. Well, I'll stop talking about this shit cause I don't have money to buy another keyboard and I feel like I'm about to break it. Well, another change I think she should have is his secondary. Like, what making it like this, bro? Could it just be a blast of fire? Like, the secondary would be awesome if Chef had an alternate primary just like in Risk of Rain Returns, where the survivors literally becomes a melee character. But oh my fucking god, man, these developers can think of a cooler idea, man. Ah, my shit. Now let's be fair here and point out some cool things. Like, his design, it's awesome, can't complain about it, it's literally Chef. Although I think that the pizza cutter could have been used as a skill instead of being just part of the design. Another waste of rotation here. And also they at least kept his special from the previous game. But overall, man, in my opinion, they just destroyed the Chef. He was such a beloved character, made with passion, we could feel that shit, and had this unique playstyle that, well, made everyone fall in love for him. But now all I can think about is that, well, this character is just lazy and shitty, bro. That was the video for y'all. Thanks for watching until here. Comment your thoughts if you agree or not. Like and subscribe to the channel, and until someday.